Hey there, Michael Leckie here with my good mate Mark Bowden. And what we do most of the time is we consult some of the most senior leaders around the world. But we realize that not everybody out there is a senior leader or a corporate executive, but still a lot of us are facing some of the same challenges when you get right down to it in business and life and in work. And so one of the things that we're doing here in this series is responding to questions we get, emails we get, people that stop us at conferences or after we've spoken or reach out and ask a question. And we're going to leverage the work and the knowledge and experience that we have working with CEOs and senior leaders around the world to help anybody who has a problem or a situation that we think we have something to address. So we've got some great questions that have been submitted to us in these ways. And by the way, if you have a question after watching this video, then feel free to go ahead and pop us a question in the comments or reach out to us. You can do that at my website at michaelleckie.com and let us know what your questions are. And as we keep getting questions, we'll keep answering them.
Okay, Michael Leckie, here is one that I got just recently. And just so everybody knows, like, this is a real question from a real person. And this one might be slightly a jaw dropper in some ways, but give me your thoughts on it, Michael. This question came in on LinkedIn. Hi, Mark. I've been doing interviews. Yesterday, I interviewed with an EVP who kept talking about negative feedback and how they let loose on people at meetings, and asked how I would deal with this as they might do it to me. This person says, look, obviously it's a huge red flag, but how should you approach a question like this? Does that make sense to you, Michael Leckie? Get the idea of what's going on here?
I guess the question, how do you respond to that? The first thing is, I mean, do you even want to keep going, right? Is this a job that they really want? Is this the person that's going to be, their boss they're dealing with on a regular basis? How does this person impact the organization? I can certainly tell you there have been times in my life where I've ignored the red flags when a senior person in the organization seemed like someone, I'm not sure I really want to work with them, but I like the rest of the organization. I think, well, they're really not going to be in my space or in my way. That rarely happens the way you think it will. So certainly it is a red flag. But second, if you want to deal with the question of how do you feel about negative feedback, that's a really good one. I think you need to be, first of all, as honest as possible about how you deal with negative feedback. Talk about, when you've benefited from it, talk about how it was delivered, but also talk about the relationships you've had and the respectful way in which it can be delivered. Because what it sounds like is this person is saying, potentially, if we put the best spin on it, is, hey, I want to be able to tell you directly when things aren't working, which I think is actually a great thing. And I want you to be able to handle that and be okay with it and not fall apart, which I think is a great thing as well. But the way they're asking it is a little bit harsh. And so getting some clarification and saying, I assume what you mean is, and kind of laying it out, might be one way to go about finding out, is this truly a red flag? Or is this person just not very skilled at communicating something that they want to communicate that actually matters, which is our ability to have real conversations at work and not feel like our ideas define us, so we can discuss, debate, kick around, and reject some of those ideas and still move forward as a team. That's what comes to mind for me. What does it make you think?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that's brilliant, Michael. I think that's really smart way to think about it. Here's my take on it, which is not dissimilar, but I need to get more information about what do you mean by let loose? Because I don't know what your let loose is. I'll tell you what my let loose is. It's like, because their let loose might be totally mine. It's like, well, if that's your let loose, yeah, I mean, that's like, I'm on for that. I mean, I might go, look, you could ramp it up a little bit if you like. Or if their let loose is something where I'm like, no, if that's your let loose, like, that is a no-go for me. That is unacceptable. So just because somebody says they let loose on people, I need to know what that is. Now, Michael, how might I do that in an interview? Well, I might say, look, just so I can be clear, could you give me an example of exactly what you mean by let loose? And by that, I might go, well, that's going to be totally tolerable and fine, and they could even push it a bit further. Or I might go, you know what, I think we should just stop this interview immediately because this just isn't, that's just offensive, and I won't be around that situation. So I guess what I'm saying here, Michael, I'd love your feedback on this, is dig a little bit more so we can get really specific about exactly what somebody might mean. Give me your thoughts on that.
I tell you, Mark, I love that, and I think you're spot on. And it might even go to the point of saying, hey, well, this sounds really interesting. Tell me about the last time that you really let loose, what that sounded like and what you achieved and what happened. And tell me about a time when it worked and tell me about a time when it didn't, because it is a really interesting question if you peel back the immediate kind of, whoa, that's kind of strange and seems almost really aggressive. If you peel it back, if we look at what's going on in organizations today with all the work like around agile and agile ways of working, which are a bit the rage, and for good reason, they have real benefit. Those are founded on people's ability to confront directly and say, you didn't do your job. What happened? That didn't work out the way it was supposed to. Tell me more. It's allowing for conflict. So if this person gives you an example of a healthy conflict, you might be saying, this is what I'm looking for. But you're right. If they come through and they're just abusive and they say, well, yeah, it sounds like me telling somebody what an idiot they are. And I say, well, and you say, and how often does that really improve their behavior? Yeah, not too much. That might be a good place for you to say, interesting, and kind of let the conversation go from there and let the recruiter know that you're not sure that you're going to be the next in a long line of people who's just getting yelled at for no particular reason. But to dig into the question, to take the time to examine what's really going on, I think shows courage. It shows a willingness to engage, and it shows that you are not afraid to deal with difficult questions. And it may just be that this is a really interesting company and that's a really interesting person, but they're seeing how do you deal with it when something that kind of unclear and potentially threatening comes along. Can you take that situation and then can you shape it into something that's healthy and that works? So I wouldn't hang up the phone or stop the interview process right then, but I'd do exactly what you're saying. Get real clear about what does this look like.
No matter where you are in your career, and this is the same kind of advice that we would give to, some of the Fortune 500 leaders that we might be working with. And it's the same advice that we're giving to you right now, is that when you're in an interview, the interview goes both ways. You can ask questions, they can ask questions, and together you can get a better idea of what the fit is and what the landscape is and who the personalities and the real characters and the values, what those are. And it's very easy for us because we do this in hindsight, and I understand how difficult it is in those situations. The key is the interview goes both ways, and you've got to ask questions.
The questions you don't ask at the beginning of a relationship are the ones that will haunt you forever during that relationship. But if you're not asking the question, you need to be thinking real hard about why not. So ask that difficult question, let that interview go both ways, and then see where it falls. I agree. As always, we love your comments and questions. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comment box, type them down there below. If it's a little more sensitive, you want to reach out to us directly, just direct message us, connect us on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear your questions and we'll respond to as many of them as we can and give you the same kind of guidance and advice that we've been giving, senior executives around the world for years for you in your situation today. Thanks a lot.